Well, the president wants to raise taxes by $1.6 trillion. That's his opening gambit, his initial bargaining position on the fiscal cliff. He wants to do that over the next decade. And this is the kind of math I like. That works out to $160 billion per year in taxes. Republicans howling about it. But are they wrong to be so upset? Let's take a look at some numbers. Earlier this year, the president unveiled a $3.8 I love this. We just talk about these numbers like there's just nothing to it. $3.8 trillion budget. He forecast a $1.3 trillion deficit. Okay? So that means, if I can figure this out, he had $2.5 trillion to work with. $1.3 trillion in deficit. $901 billion set for next year in deficit. Our national debt is now over $16 trillion. Everybody knows that. I don't need to write that down. And the president's big plan. He just wants $1.6 trillion in new taxes. And here's how he wants to get there. First, he wants to raise $849 billion over 10 years by allowing the Bush tax cuts, there they go, away at on the 31st of December this year. They'll expire for households with incomes of more than $250,000. That $849 billion includes $206 billion in higher taxes on dividends, $123 billion on limiting itemized deductions, $36 billion in higher taxes on capital gains. And next, the White House wants to raise another $584 billion over 10 years, $584 billion of that over 10 years by reducing the value of certain tax breaks, cutting tax breaks related to charitable contributions, mortgage payments. Oh, by the way, that might have an impact on the housing industry. That should get everybody a little excited. We've got something good going here, as the saying goes now, in the housing industry, so let's quash that. The rest of the president's $1.6 trillion would come from raising taxes on options, commodity traders, corporate-owned life insurance policies, and some energy companies. But let's get serious for a moment. That $1.6 trillion over a decade breaks down to $160 billion each year. This still leaves a hole of $840 billion if we want to balance the budget. The president likes to that is, you're looking at a $1 trillion deficit. Now, the president likes to demonize those Bush tax cuts, so he won't tell you this, but I will. The tax revenue is already increasing to the federal government under the Bush rates. In fact, individual income tax payments have risen $233 billion over the course of the past 2 years, up 26%. 26%. And by the way, raising the marginal tax rates is a sure recipe for recession and even bigger deficits, according to the Congressional Budget Office. That wasn't part of today's news conference. So far, it hasn't been part of the discussion. Don't you think it ought to be?